What do British people wear? Are we fashionable? Are we not really interested at all? That's the topic of this episode of the English Right Now podcast. Welcome. And this podcast is dedicated to people learning English. And we're going to teach you at least 10 pieces of vocabulary along the way. We say at least because, sometimes other words crop up because it is a free flowing, real conversation with my dear friend, Rob. Hello, Rob.
Hi, Roy. Hi, everyone. How are we doing today?
Very, very well. I've got my cup of coffee and I'm ready to talk about fashion. So this is an interesting topic. This is one that that a couple of people talked about and you thought was a great idea to chat about. So would you class yourself as a fashionable man?
No, absolutely not. I am not what we call a follower of fashion. I don't follow the latest fashions. As you can tell, boring blue shirt. I've just got some shorts on today because it's very hot. I like to keep it casual, to be honest.
I like that. Casual is one of our actual words for today. So casual fashion is kind of this idea of we often say smart cash in the workplace. So for example, we often say smart cash where we're wearing maybe a shirt but not a tie and these kind of things. And casual is when it's kind of, relaxed, very informal dress. So I would say you're halfway between casual and smart cash with that short sleeve shirt right there. But it's interesting, and straight away I say, are you a follower of fashion? No, podcast over because neither am I. No, I don't. What would you say? So let's generalize first. What do you think a lot of people think the British do dress like?
I think traditionally, probably people do think we dress smartly, wear suits and bowler hats. Traditionally, a bowler hat, which is a hat in the shape of a bowl, black hat, very formal, wearing it to the office. So I imagine people, think we're very, very formal people in general, and therefore wear quite formal clothes.
That's the stereotype. I think it's very different when you get here. And of course, that bowler hat was famous. Charlie Chaplin used to wear one of those, I think, didn't he? And before that, we had the top hat, which was a higher, kind of a taller hat. And these days, it's not really common. I've got a little hat, and everybody sort of jokes about it, saying I look like a detective. So I don't think it's not as common to wear a hat. It's seen as a bit old-fashioned, I think. Maybe a baseball cap, but realistically, it's not a common thing. So we've talked about this traditional dress, and we've got this. It's again going back to that stereotype of Mr. Darcy. Yes. What do you think? Average British person, do you think they're that bothered? Of course, some people will always be interested in fashion, but do you think that the average British person cares?
No, not at all. A good point, though, Roy. I mean, we do have some very famous fashion designers in the UK, and they obviously design very amazing and expensive clothes. But I think that's a niche, like a small part of it.
Yeah.
But in your everyday British man and woman, I think, aren't that bothered about fashion. It's just being practical clothes, sensible clothes, something that feels comfortable to wear, but maybe doesn't look amazing.
Yeah. So I would agree with that. I think as well, even sort of more affluent members of society, affluent is another word for rich, affluent members of society will maybe buy more expensive clothes like your Armani, your Gucci, your things like this, but they tend to go it's almost like they are discreet fashion for a lot of people. It's smart, very elegant wear, but it's not really kind of advertising the brand. I think there's this idea that if you put the name on the t-shirt or people sort of shy away from it a bit more, almost like it's a vulgar demonstration of wealth, I think. I remember in the 2000s, around the millennium, a lot of kind of younger people were buying these tops with huge prints of like Gucci across it. And it just seemed like they were sort of trying to be fashionable rather than being fashionable.
Yeah. Could we call them fashion victims?
Maybe? Yes. How did we not think of this as a great piece of vocabulary? I would say fashion victims, though, more relates to somebody who is trying to buy all the latest fashions, but they're going together and it looks horrible. It looks like an absolute mess. So a fashion victim is somebody who basically chases the latest fashions, but puts them together in quite a horrible way. And it seems like they're very susceptible to fashion.
Yeah, I have to
I
say,
would.
I've got a friend like that. Yeah, I mean, he's got quite a bit of money, so he might buy a really expensive shirt with the brand on it, but as a
Yeah.
complete kind of outfit, it doesn't look really good. Okay, he's wearing a fantastic designer shirt, but the rest of him, yeah, it doesn't all come together as a perfect outfit, really. Yeah.
No. And yeah, I think we've all got people like that in our life. I'm thinking of a couple in my head now. It's awful, isn't it? But I would say, as a nation, we're not exactly fashion conscious. We're not aware of all the latest fashions. This is a great piece of vocabulary from today. To be fashion conscious is to be aware. I mean, if you compare us to some other cultures, um, we're probably not as aware of fashion, but we do. I would definitely say London is more fashionable, and maybe even Manchester's got its own really unique style and things like that. So there are fashionable cities, there are stylish cities, but we're talking about the general British person.
Yeah.
So would you? So here's a word that we picked: trendy. Would you
Mm.
call yourself trendy?
If you mean following the latest trends in fashion,
Yeah,
then no, I'm not trendy. No, I'm the opposite of. What's the opposite of trendy, Roy?
Rob,
Untrendy, I suppose. But
you.
Rob,
Yeah, I'm just a typical Rob. No, I
yeah,
think trendy is a word that you picked. And trendy basically just means fashionable. It's another way for saying fashionable. That's really trendy, but it's like a current short period of time that it is popular. I think some cultures wearing expensive clothes demonstrates wealth. I think for British people, if I'm honest, the majority of us, it's not so much about the clothes we wear, it's our houses. So if we have a
mm,
beautiful house, we put more investment into our house
mm.
and
And
maybe
cars,
into a certain hmm?
and cars as well.
And cars. Yeah,
Mm,
cars to a certain extent. But I think if you've got a beautiful house, I mean, I know some people who are quite affluent and they've got a beautiful house, they've got a Rolex, they don't dress very elegantly, and they drive an old banger. An old banger is slang for an old car which kind of uh, is close to breaking down. And I could almost say these people sometimes dress quite, they look a bit scruffy. Scruffy
mm,
basically means it's one of our chosen vocabulary. It means quite unkempt.
mm.
Maybe if your beard is a bit wild, you could say it's a bit scruffy. Or if your
Yeah,
clothes are a bit scruffy, they're a bit ripped and kind of look a bit
yeah.
old and tired.
Messy is another word. Yeah, a bit messy.
Yeah,
Yeah. The interesting thing, you got the Rolex. The other thing, yeah, people are scruffy. They might wear a t-shirt and some jeans, but one thing they do spend a lot of money on is their shoes, and it tends to be trainers.
yeah,
You know, designer trainers. As
yeah.
again, a kind of statement to say, look, I've got the latest, most expensive designer trainers on, even though the rest of your clothes are just scruffy, as you say.
Yeah, they always say look at the shoes, don't they? They always say look at the
Mm,
shoes to tell the wealth of the person or the status of the person. I think that's true to a certain extent. But I mean I have seen I was walking along the street the other day with my wife and child, and there was a lovely chap just in the street. And for some reason, we started up a conversation. I think I was asking him directions, and we had a chat. And he was quite scruffily dressed. You know, he didn't look very elegant. And then he walked back into his house, and I was like, this house must have been worth about £5 or £6 million. And I was like,
mm.
wow, is that your house? He went, oh yeah, come up and have a look. Very eccentric gentleman, but dressed like you would never imagine that he had a £5 or £6 million house from the way he dressed. So I
Mm,
think there
mm.
is almost a certain level of trying to be discreet. Would you agree to an extent with that?
Yes. Oh, that's interesting. We're saying, people are scruffy and they wear maybe a t-shirt and trousers, and so they're not fashionable. But then you could argue, of course, that wearing a white t-shirt and some scruffy jeans is the fashion. That is the style, and maybe
Yeah.
that means something. That it's a way of saying, "Hey, look at me. I'm casual, but I'm rich because I'm wearing a t-shirt." I don't know.
Maybe,
So
maybe,
you know,
maybe people will start to think that I am.
yeah, I say like all things people wear, in a way, it's a uniform. You know how teenagers dress in a very similar way, my daughter
Yeah,
included. Might wear a hoodie or some baggy
yeah,
trousers. You can all the teenagers. You look at a glance, they all look the same because they're all wearing the same kind of scruffy clothes. That's the uniform. That's the fashion, maybe.
yeah, yeah. The hoodie was this thing. It was like a jumper with a hood on it, and we call it a
Mm,
hoodie.
hoodie, yeah.
That's a good piece of vocabulary. A
Mm,
hoodie. And I think most British people, it is jeans, maybe kind of sort of chinos, which are these beige trousers, uh, and maybe a shirt, t-shirt in summer, jumper in the winter. I'm ridiculous for wearing a jumper right now. I realize the mistake that I'm making right now, but this is kind of my uniform. But and I'd say maybe to work we need to. Well, there are other things as well to talk about. So a lot of people are edging towards vintage clothing.
Yes,
vintage is one of our key pieces of vocabulary, and it's like sort of old secondhand clothing, but from a specific era that's still quite fashionable. So 60s or 70s or 80s clothing. I think it's a fashionable term for secondhand.
Yeah, I say it's marketing speak for secondhand, really. I mean, a great place to get secondhand clothes is to go to the many charity shops we have in our high streets, where people donate their old clothes to a charity shop. The charity shop sells them. Obviously, the money goes to a charity. But sometimes you can pick up a real bargain. You can pick up something that has become fashionable again, something from the past that's become fashionable again. Even, you could pick up some jeans that are quite cool and that sort of thing for a good price. But now they call them vintage clothes to imply that they're not, to get away from the idea that they're secondhand, but just that they're from a different fashionable period. Therefore, they can put the price up a bit as well, I guess.
I didn't know this, but I went to my local charity shop and I sort of said something about there's so many women's clothes, clothes for women, not enough for men. And apparently men just don't donate. Men don't donate clothes as much as women. Probably because, well, you know what it's like. I think I don't like buying clothes, so I've got clothes from like the 1990s in my wardrobe that I find, and I'm like, oh, I really need to get rid of that, and it never goes. Because I'm like, oh, I might wear that again.
Yes.
So yeah, men don't donate as much, but you can find some absolute bargains in charity shops. I love charity shops.
And of course, people sell clothes online now. There's apps, like, for example, Vinted. An app where people buy and sell secondhand clothes, which is cheaper, which is a great idea, really.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's like an eBay for clothes, isn't it? But yeah, I would definitely say for me and for a lot of people that I know, I value comfort over style.
Yeah,
I am comfort first. I don't care as long as it doesn't look scruffy, terrible, awful. I will go for a variety of different. I basically buy the same jumper but in different colors.
Yeah,
and I go for comfort every time.
Yeah,
although I think I need to buy some short sleeve shirts.
Yeah, no, I'm generalizing, but I think that's the general idea of British people. I think we go for comfort, comfort, practicality, that sort of thing. We tend to. Here's an expression for you: dress down. I think we dress down.
Yeah,
but there are special occasions when you dress up, so you really do make an effort. Yeah,
two key pieces of vocabulary there from the selection. Dress down is when we dress like more casually. Less so maybe sometimes we have dress down Friday, don't we, at work? We need to talk about work very soon. Dress down Friday, where you can wear jeans and a t-shirt or a casual shirt. If it is a very formal workplace, maybe on a Friday it's dress down Friday. You can maybe not wear a tie, but in some offices you can just go for whatever you want. They often say no football shirts. Fair enough. And if you dress up, you kind of improve, you dress more formally. We need to be careful there because dress up can also mean wear a costume. So if you go to a fancy dress party, you might dress up as Captain America or Captain Britain in our case. He was a real comic book character, actually. So dress up and dress down, key pieces of vocabulary there.
And we might dress up and make an effort if we go to the theatre, for example, or we go to a fancy restaurant. But again, in the UK, I mean, that's an extreme. I think generally speaking, if you're going out for a pizza or you're going to the cinema, you don't dress up. You dress down again, don't you? You wear just some easy casual clothes.
Again, I think in some cultures, going to restaurants, it's kind of an event. And I think restaurants in the UK, it's very functional. I mean, you go with friends and you enjoy their company, but the whole kind of event, the whole kind of occurrence is more of a functional eating thing. I mean, even in restaurants, you get dogs. So, which is a very alien thing. My dog always comes with me to the restaurant, and my in-laws, who are from Brazil, found this insane that they let a dog sit near
Yeah.
the table. I mean, she doesn't get up on the table. She's not
No.
on a seat and eating as well.
Yeah.
She just sits there. And occasionally
Yeah.
I accidentally drop food. But yeah. So yeah, this is it.
Okay.
But let's talk about the workplace.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think in the workplace, again, it depends what job you do. I think if you work in a bank or the financial sector, I think people still dress up. I wouldn't know because I don't work in the financial sector, but I think people still wear suits and ties. Of course, any job where you meet the general public, you need to make a good impression. So people tend to wear suits and ties.
Yeah.
But I think if you work either in the back office or you work in media, for example, people tend to dress down. It's very casual. You don't need to wear a suit, or as you say, you could be smart cash. You might wear a jacket, but underneath you wear a t-shirt, or you might wear smart trousers, but you still wear trainers or sports shoes. That sort of thing. Would you
You've
agree?
just taken yes. So absolutely. So a suit, first of all, is one of our key pieces of vocabulary. More as well for the pronunciation. So it's spelled S-U-I-T, but pronounced suit. And it's this idea of a jacket, trousers, maybe a waistcoat and a tie and a shirt, but mainly the jacket, trousers that is known as a suit. And I think it depends on the industry. Absolutely, bankers, financial, probably wear suits, but they may take the jacket off and just wear the shirt and tie. And then you get these really kind of casual dress codes. It's called a dress code, so it's the things that you're expected to wear. And usually, when you start a job, you should ask, "What is the dress code? Is it a casual, formal dress code? Is it a casual dress code?" These kind of things. So I definitely think you should engage in that. I've worked in some very casual environments where t-shirts and shorts are fine, and also some quite relatively formal environments where you had to wear a suit and tie. But I said you took me back. You've taken me back in time. I once went for a group job interview for a job I didn't really want, but I didn't know what I wanted to do after university, and everybody was there. Suited and booted, as they say. Remember? Oh, that
Good
expression is a great one.
expression.
Suited and booted. We didn't include that. Great piece of vocabulary. If you're suited and booted, you're wearing your best suit and you're wearing your shoes, your best shoes, and everyone's
So
suited and
very
booted. And
smart.
so was I. Very smart. Very, very smart. So was I, but I'd had to take my tie off because my tie was kind of choking me a little bit. I took it off. And in the middle of this room with 20 other or 30 other people in it, this guy said, "Did you not think it's appropriate to wear a tie for this group interview?" And I sat there, I was sitting there and thought, "No, this is not the job I want. Not if I'm going to be treated like that."
Yeah.
And that was I think that's probably the last time I ever wore a tie. But yeah, you're right. To a job interview, you should dress very smartly. Shirt and
Yes.
tie. Again, depends to an extent on the environment. So if it's kind of a media creative place, you could maybe get away with just a shirt. But I would always wear a shirt and tie. Maybe not the full suit if it's summer. But yeah, so yeah, it's an interesting one, this idea of the workplace. A lot of people, they dress very smartly for the first few days, and then gradually they realize that nobody else is dressing smartly in certain places.
They read the room, don't they? They can see, oh, hold on a minute, I'm standing out here with my suit and tie. I'll dress down a bit. I do think, obviously, I think fashion in the workplace has changed over the years anyway. When you look back to films from the kind of 1960s and the 50s, everyone was smart. With the bowler hat, the tie, the suit, that sort of thing. But things have changed and things are much more informal. But yeah, I think my advice is start smart and then sort of start dressing down as appropriate.
One of the key pieces of vocabulary that we haven't mentioned yet is the height of fashion. The height of fashion is like the pinnacle, the most amazing part. You know, this. I don't think British people are the height of fashion on the whole.
No. There are exceptions, and I mentioned we've got some great designers. I think I can think of Stella McCartney, for example, Vivienne Westwood, people like that have designed some amazing clothes. But I say that's an exception, and those clothes
Alexander
are not
McQueen.
Yes, another one. Those clothes aren't necessarily worn by British people. They're probably worn by other people, more fashionable people around the world, even though they're designed in the UK. But yeah, we're talking about the everyday person. And the only time I might put my glad rags on is obviously
Oh,
a party or a wedding. Glad rags. Do you
yes.
like that word?
I like the glad rags. So your glad rags are your like really elegant clothes, your wonderful clothes, your party clothes. Get your glad rags on. It's kind of a very informal way of saying it. My mum would always say, "Get your glad rags on, put your war paint on, and let's go to a party." And war paint is what she used to sort of say informally as makeup. Obviously, I
Right.
wouldn't put my makeup on, but she was talking about, "I'm going to put my war paint on, get my glad rags, and I'm going to go." And
Yeah.
it's this kind of thing, and it's a very informal sort of slang way to say elegant clothes. But yeah, I do like that term. Yeah,
Yeah.
very very rarely does my formal clothes see the light of day. That's a great expression. To see the light of day, it means come out into the world. They're usually in the
Yes.
cupboard.
It's like
So
I've got one smart suit, and I only wear it for job interviews, weddings, and
I know what
funerals.
you're going to say. I knew
The
you were going
same
to say
suit
that.
comes out. The
Yeah,
same suit comes out for all those occasions. That's the only time.
yeah. Interviews, marriage, death.
That's it.
Yeah, no, somebody once said to me, after the age of 18, you're going to need a black tie. And I didn't really understand what he meant. I was only about 7. God, what an awful thing to say to a 7-year-old.
Yes.
But he said that, and it's true. You do need a suit, sadly, around the age of 18. One thing we do need to mention before we go is fast fashion. Fast
Yes.
fashion. Fast fashion is this business model of kind of replicating the latest fashion trends. So there we go with that trendy kind of the catwalk trends. So the catwalk is that the place where models walk, showing off the latest fashion, and these sort of high fashion designs, and then they might mass produce them at very low cost, and they sort of sell them very quickly while everybody's really after it. I think one of the most famous shops in terms of clothes in the UK is Primark.
Yeah.
Have you ever
Yes.
been to Primark, Rob?
I
Silly
have. I
question.
have to admit, I have. I confess, I have bought things there, and as you say, they mass produce the latest fashions, and the clothes are very cheap indeed. The
Yeah.
only problem with that, and Primark aren't just one example. I'm sure there are other examples as well, but of shops that sell this stuff cheap. Oops, and they sell this stuff cheap, and then you wear it for a bit, and then you throw it away, and that's fast
Yeah.
fashion. It's not a waste, basically. You don't
Or in
keep
my
it.
case, they just sit in my wardrobe for 20 years
Yes. Of course,
until I'm ready.
you can give it to a
Yeah.
charity shop, and then that can be kind of recycled and resold later on, which is good.
And you
But
should.
the
Maybe
thing
not
is,
your socks or your underwear, but your trousers, your shirts. And yeah, I
well,
don't think I'd ever buy. Gosh, I wouldn't buy underwear from a charity shop. That's a level up. I want to say that now.
yes,
That is a level up. I usually go to places like Primark for my underwear
yeah,
because I think it's so cheap. And
mm.
yeah,
But it
I
doesn't
think it's
last. It doesn't last so long. This is the problem, though, isn't it? And then it tends to get thrown
some of
away,
it.
and then you buy more. But yeah,
Some of it, yeah. I mean, I bought these jumpers from a shop called Matalan, which is like a kind of nice. I like Matalan. It's another retail place, maybe not on the same level as Primark, but it's got kind of cheaper clothing that actually does last a bit longer. I think so. It's good quality. There you go.
mm.
Sponsored by Matalan, Rob.
Yes. Well, my clothes are from C&A, which shut down in the
Oh, aren't
UK
you
in
just
the Although, funnily enough, you do see stores, C&A stores on the continent in Europe. I've seen them.
yeah,
It no
yeah?
longer exists in the UK.
Did they? When did CNA close down?
I think it was the 80s or 90s. Yeah, in the UK.
Rob, we need to go shopping. It's the first time I've ever said that to another human being and generally meant it. But yeah, probably we do. We need to go out and maybe take some of our students with us to help us pick some clothes that are slightly more fashionable. But yeah, I think on the whole, we're not the most fashionable nation, but I do think we see other things as more important investments for the majority of British people. And if you do have disposable income, then maybe, just maybe, you can put that in the thing. But I think most disposable income is like that kind of extra money. But I think
Yeah,
most people will prioritize the house. They'll prioritize other things before fashion.
yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're just not a stylish bunch, really.
But we're not a scruffy nation. We are a practical
No.
nation, I think. Clothes for
Mm.
practicalities. So, on that note, Thank you very much, Rob, for joining me today. If you have any topics that you'd like us to discuss in the comments below, please do let us know. Please give this video a like. But Rob, thank you very much for joining me on this episode of the podcast. And it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, no, pleasure as always, Roy. See you on the next one.
And go buy some new clothes.
Yes.